There are many guns, both current and out of production, that have a rather ubiquitous presence in the world of firearms. This is especially true if we're talking about the 1980s and 1990s in America. While guns like the Israeli Uzi, the Mac 10, 11, 12, and the AKM have all solidified themselves as Hollywood's favorite bad guy guns, there is one weapon in particular that perfectly describes the late 80s and 90s, both within media as well as real life. Originally marketed to foreign military and law enforcement sales as a 9mm PDW, also competing with the MP5, Uzi, and others, Interdynamic MP9 saw little interest aside from the South African apartheid government very briefly considering the weapon before moving on to other submachine gun designs. With the possibility of military and law enforcement sales becoming less and less likely, the alternative would of course be civilian sales in the United States. Interdynamic AB, a Swedish firearms manufacturer, established an American subsidiary company under the name Interdynamic USA, which would be run primarily by two firearms designers, Swedish-born George Kellgren and Cuban-American firearms designer Carlos Garcia. In 1984, Kellgren would leave the Swedish parent company and purchase the American-formed Interdynamic USA, and Carlos would shortly rebrand that company as Intratec. This would ultimately give the company complete control over the manufacturing rights and sales of what would later become known as the Tec-9, as Interdynamic AB had essentially given up and considered the whole venture a complete loss. Their first pistol, the KG-9, standing for Kellgren and Garcia 9mm, fired from an open bolt and was banned from manufacture within 1 year of design in 1982. The ATF found that modifying the disconnector on an open bolt KG-9 effectively converted the gun into a machine pistol fairly easily. Only 2,500 were made, and all were grandfathered by the ATF, so Intratec could at least complete existing orders. And so Kellgren went back to the drawing board and designed the KG-99, a closed bolt firing semi-auto pistol. In addition to changing the bolt assembly and the safety, which the KG-9 didn't even have a safety, he added a threaded barrel. He also designed three other variants, the KG-99 Mini, which featured a shorter threaded barrel, no barrel shroud, and a screw-on muzzle device, the KG-99 Sport, which is identical to the Mini, but it did not have a threaded barrel, and later the KG-99 SS standing for stainless steel. And it's believed that less than 100 KG-99 SS's were produced. They represent the most desirable closed-bolt KG-99 variant ever produced, including the later guns made by Intratec. Now let's fast forward back to 1984. George Kellgren needed capital to fund his primary company at the time, which is known as Grendel, and he figured that by selling all of Interdynamic USA to Carlos Garcia, while also convincing the Swedish parent company to pull out, he could get the money that he needed, and that's exactly what he did. Carlos Garcia renamed the company Intratec, hoping to capitalize on the company's use of space-age high-impact ABS plastic for a modern-sounding name. He also renamed the KG-99 to the Tec-9, again because of this high-impact plastic frame that he used. The KG-99 Mini became the Tec-9M, M standing for Mini, and the KG-99 Sport was abandoned altogether. And the brand new in the lineup were the Tec-9 SS, a stainless steel model, and the Tec-9M SS, again just a stainless steel model. And this variant is incredibly rare. Garcia made only one initial design change to the gun. He changed the complex front sight to a simpler, just as sturdy milled steel button. The rear sight would remain unchanged. And it's this particular kind of front sight that most would say is the best that you can get as far as the Tec-9 is concerned. Certainly better than the stamped steel sights that would later come. Within a few months, however, Garcia wanted to take action against people violating the user manual and attempting to shoot +P+ submachine gun ammo that had been cracking receivers. His solution was to replace the simple recoil buffer with a screw-on metal end cap, making the gun more durable. Now, an important thing to note between Kellgren and Garcia is that they both had very different ideas of marketing when it came to firearms. Kellgren liked marketing his guns to law enforcement as well as families, believing, one, it's the morally right thing to do and that's how shooters were to be best represented. We see this all the time with modern Kel-Tec ads, for example. And some of the KG-99 ads, if you can even find them, show off-duty police officers plinking with KG-99s, while another shows a father demonstrating the gun's function to his son in a safe manner. Garcia, on the other hand, was convinced that the right way to go about it was to market the newly renamed Tec-9 to 21 to 26-year-old males. And this is where we start getting reports of questionable marketing from Intratec, and we'll go more into that. In mid-1987, Intratec was sued by the estate of David Bengston in a Connecticut state court. The complaint alleged that the decedent, a school custodian, was fatally shot in the head with a Tec-9 Mini, and that Intratec knew or should have known that the Tec-9 Mini was and is primarily suited for or used in criminal activity, and that it lacks legitimate use, such as sporting or self-protection. Intratec technically won the lawsuit, but it was a hollow victory since Intratec had to liquidate its assets. Garcia found himself on very shaky ground here, and so he formed the Navigar Corporation in order to absorb Intratec and provide assets of its own. There were rumors that Navigar was set up to make backpacks, canvas bags, outdoor clothing, that sort of thing, but this is unconfirmed. Needing to churn out a quick profit, Garcia introduced a .22 caliber pistol of George Kellgren's design called the Tec-22 Scorpion. And contrary to popular belief, the Tec-22 is not a .22 version of the Tec-9. It's a separate design altogether, but he was still running out of money. And this is where quality control dipped for the Tec-9, and its reputation as a piece of junk became more and more solidified, if you will. Garcia made the fateful decision to cut back on quality control, thus lowering the price of the Tec-9. He also dispensed with the good quality button sights and replaced them with stamped steel sights that were spot welded to the gun, sometimes not even lining up correctly. I know on mine, they're not lined up correctly, nor is the rear sight fully spot welded to the tube. So that should give you an idea as to the quality control cuts that these guns kind of suffered from. Although the Tec-22 managed to survive the quality control breakdown due to an inherently better design, the Tec-9's already questionable quality due to its finickiness about ammunition and magazines fell apart completely. Still, the guns sold to Garcia's target market even better than before due to their lower price, which is why you started seeing the gangbanger image attached to the Tec-9. By late 1993, legislators in California decided to ban both the Tec-9 and the Tec-22 by name in the states where Bertie Roos assault weapons ban, in the aftermath of the 101 California street shootings, in which the perpetrator used two Tec-9s with Hellfire triggers. Garcia got around it pretty easily. He just changed both of the guns' names. The Tec-9 became the Tec-DC-9, DC standing for Designated California. 1990 also saw the introduction of the Tec Coat finish, an improved stainless steel finish that was primarily meant to keep the guns looking new after you'd run a ton of gun cleaner over them. The Tec-DC-9 coat and the Tec-22 coat were the names of the new guns, essentially, with the new finishes as well. Unfortunately, Intratec also decided to include a list of just what Tec Coat could prevent in terms of rust and corrosion. On that list, which makes sense to gun collectors such as us, was sweat stains. But some reporter decided to ask Intratec if that meant their guns were resistant to fingerprints. Yes, because there's no rust now when you, but see, the reporter caught on to the word yes, and the word yes was all the media needed to start saying that Intratec's guns were fingerprint proof and thus being sold to criminals. In either 1991 or 92, depends on who you ask, Intratec made the only physical design change from the Tec-9 to the Tec-9 DC-9, as in the standard one as well, including the Tec-DC-9 SS and the Tec-DC-9 coat. They replaced the gun's dual sling swivels with a one-point sling bracket that attached between the upper receiver and the lower receiver. In 1994, the federal assault weapons ban was passed. It outright banned the Tec-9 and many other weapons that conformed to a similar style and design. Hemorrhaging money and running out of options, Intratec almost collapsed, but reintroduced the guns in early 1997. The Tec DC-9 was technically eliminated, no pun intended, but the smaller Tec DC-9M was only an assault weapon because it had a threaded barrel. Intratec did the obvious, produced the pistol without a threaded barrel, as well as the Tec DC-9's 1-point sling bracket. And this gun was renamed the AB-10, AB standing for afterban, and 10 for 10 rounds, although the actual 10-round magazines are quite rare, and Intratec sold the guns with new old stock 20-rounders and 36-round magazines. And there were only two variants, the AB-10 and the AB-10SS stainless steel model, which featured, in some opinions, the best quality stainless steel finish Intratec could ever put onto its firearms. And the Tec coat finish was completely phased out. Paradoxically, Intratec finally became more concerned about guns jamming, but only at the expense of accuracy. Garcia still thought it was necessary to cut corners in quality control to have an affordable gun. With sales of the newer Cat 45 and the never successful Cat 380 flagging, these guns were discontinued in 1998. By 1999, Intratec was relying on the AB-10, the Sport 22, and the Cat 9 and the Protect 25. Lawsuits and subsequent bad press after the Columbine shooting had more or less sealed the fate for the company. First guns to go were the Protect 25 and the Sport 22, which disappeared somewhere around 2000. The Cat 9 lasted into early 2001, but not any further, and in the very end, the AB-10 was all that was keeping Intratec alive. And although advertised for 2002, manufacture ceased effectively in late 2001. The company would fold completely and dissolve in late 2001. Unfortunately, the Tec-9 would also show up in several high-profile shootings, as well as common seizures and drug busts. In 1990, a Tec-9 was used in the West End Synagogue drive-by shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, thankfully with no lives lost, though. As we've mentioned earlier, two Tec DC-9s were used in the 101 California street shooting at the Pettit and Martin law offices, resulting in 8 deaths and 6 injuries. No motive was ever narrowed down for this shooting. And finally, the Tec-9's most infamous crime case was the Columbine Massacre of 1999, in which a straw-purchased and thus illegally obtained Tec DC-9 Mini was used by one of the perpetrators, resulting in 13 deaths and 24 injuries. The Tec-9 would make fairly common appearances at crime scenes across the United States shortly after Kellgren's departure from Intratec, and Carlos Garcia had begun to cheapen the handgun both in terms of price and overall manufacture quality. Boasting a scary and intimidating submachine gun-like appearance and an advertised 36-round magazine capacity, very few handguns at this time offered similar features at a low price point of $247.95 in 1989. And even cheaper in '93 with a price of $200 at most gun shows. Combining all of this, these handguns were prime targets for straw purchasing, as it would be fairly common for felons to hand someone a couple $100s, straw purchase 2 or 3 Tec-9s, and the straw purchaser could pocket the leftover money for themselves. The pistols would also be heard frequently in the music of rap artists of the era, even today in more modern tracks.
You still gon' want some bitch and what the motherfucker I wanna wonder whammy with a Tec-9. Now bitch press your luck.
Catching keys from cross seas, rolling in MPVs every week. We make 40 G's. Yo, nigga, respect my nigga the Tec-9. Bow, move from the gate now.
Another day, another struggle. I had the master plan. I'm in the caravan on my way to Maryland with my man 2 Tecs to take over this project. They call him 2 Tecs, he told 2 Tecs. And when he stopped the bus, he like to ask who's next. I got my honey on the Amtrak.
Looking for the dollars, need trues and bowls, let me pull these models. Had a snatch spot in the kickboxing the Impala. Kept a Tec-9, kept Tony in the dollar. Memphis 10 nigga, man, we been on some.
With Intratec's dissolution and their pistols long out of production, many of them destroying themselves over time as the old polymer frames crack with age and improper use. The Tec-9 is a bygone product of its time, but more dangerous than any other modern pistol today that can take an extended magazine. The bad guy gun, the gangbanger's friend, and the ridiculous reminder of the 80s and 90s, really whatever you may call it. It certainly has solidified itself in history as an icon of its own. Even those who've never held a weapon in their life could probably tell you about the Tec-9's legacy to an extent. Today, it's merely a remnant of a different time in America. Like many things over time, it's now considered a collectible by firearms owners.